good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you're watching this video, this is News and Views by Doug. So, I want to welcome you to the channel. If you haven't been watching that long, I decided to start a podcast after watching many podcasts out there on social media. And today, on this video, it's a little bit different. And I'm going to be talking about chow, or food in the military. And there's a specific reason for it. Now, when I was in the United States Marine Corps, I spent a little bit of time on 3 or 4 different ships and a couple of people have posted pictures of the food that they're serving the sailors and Marines on board these ships right now. And in those pictures, the food just doesn't look appetizing. It looks like a dried meat packet, some other meat, and tortillas. It just didn't look appetizing. Now, the weird thing is the Navy has always had a reputation for having pretty good food, especially on board ships. I mean, they're feeding, on the carriers, they got over 5,000 people. They're little mini cities. On the smaller ships, they still had good food. And the 3 ships that I was on when I was in the Marines, and this is in the 1980s, was the USS Guam, the USS Okinawa, and the USS Dubuque. Dubuque. It was a flat-bottom boat, and it was really rough and heavy seas, and a lot of people were vomiting everywhere, so we called it the Dubuque. But if I remember correctly, the food wasn't so bad. So there was a little bit of a controversy a couple of weeks ago about the military being given ribeye steaks and lobsters and things like that. And I can tell you folks, from my experience, and I'll tell you a couple of stories, this has been a military tradition, especially for troops that are deploying to war. And it came out, things that happened 20, 30, 40 years ago. No one ever talks trash. But in the Trump administration, as soon as anything happens, oh my God, the world's going to end. And everyone's got to bitch and complain about him and his administration. So they went off on Pete Hegseth, who's the Department of War secretary, about how much money was being spent on this food. Well, I'm going to show you an image here. And that's right, that's Michelle Obama, or Mike, serving steak and lobster to the troops. There's other images out there, if you do any research, showing the presidents, especially on Thanksgiving, serving food to the troops. And eating with the troops. And I can tell you this. My first 2 years in the Marine Corps, I was at Marine Barracks, 8th and I in Washington, D.C., a part of the presidential unit, support unit. And on Tuesdays and Fridays during the summer, they had the parade seasons. And especially on Friday nights, there was a parade that had the Drum and Bugle Corps, the Commandant's Own. They had the Silent Drill Team, and then the Honor Guard units. And they would do a parade for the public, but also you never knew who was going to show up. It could have been the President of the United States. It could have been another leader from another country. And so on those nights, we got served pretty damn good food. You never knew if the president was going to be sitting next to you having a meal. And when I was there, it was President Reagan. And I was very fortunate enough that I got to speak to the president several times, and even Mrs. Reagan. And I tell you what, absolutely loved them. They treated us like we were their sons. They treated us so damn well. And when President Reagan died, I cried for 2 days. When Mrs. Reagan passed away, I was upset. If we could only reincarnate President Reagan. So anyways, these people would show up to the barracks and we'd have a really good dinner. Now, on a normal note, I was lucky enough to have a car when I was at the barracks. And I had heard a rumor, and there's an Air Force base across the Anastasia River. It's a Bowling Green. I can't remember its name. But I heard that they had pretty damn good food. It was an Air Force base. They had ice cream. So I started driving over there for lunch, sometimes dinner. And because we were in the military, we were able to sit there and eat again for free. And they had really good food. I mean, we're talking amazing food compared to what the Marine Corps was serving us at the barracks on a normal day. Well, I lived in the barracks and I had 2 roommates. And they found out where I was going, what I was doing, excuse me. Sorry about that. I don't know if you ever noticed my videos. I don't really edit out things like that. I'm trying to show you that, we're doing this real. So anyways, long story short, I'm going to cough again. Let me grab a drink here. My McDonald's caramel iced coffee. Love it every morning. So anyways, on a regular day for the Marine Corps, we had some type of meat, protein, vegetables, potatoes, pretty much whatever you wanted. No ice cream. But the food wasn't bad. It just wasn't great. Well, so many people started finding out about what myself and my roommates were doing by going over to the Air Force Base that eventually the Air Force Base had to ban the Marine Corps or the Marines from the barracks from eating over at their base because they were over budgeted for their food. We were wiping them out. We were eating everything we could. On the other end, the Marine barracks was upset because nobody was showing up to eat their food during lunch and dinner. And so they're cooking all this food and it was technically going to waste. So we were banned from the Air Force Base. We went back to the Marine barracks. And the funniest thing was that suddenly some Marine general in the supply chain came out with an order that Marines were no longer allowed to go through the Chow line twice. One time, that's it. Get as much as you want, but one time. And I remember all of us sitting there laughing when we heard about that because we looked at each other and we said, when we were allowed to go through twice, when? When did that ever happen? We were never allowed to go through the Chow line twice. But, I digress. I do remember one time, and we have to thank those Marine Corps cooks. We had just came back from a mission. It was freezing cold. It was snowing, ice everywhere. And we came back late at night, maybe around 11, 2300, midnight. And we hadn't ate dinner. We had been eating MREs out in the field, but we didn't have any hot meal. When we got back to the base, the officer of the day took it upon himself to go and wake up the sergeant, I think it was a gunnery sergeant who was in charge of the cooks, wake him up and ask him, is it possible to feed this platoon of Marines? There was like 30 of us. That gunny got all of his cooks up early because they were going to have to get up anyways to go cook breakfast for everybody the next day. And they made us meals, hot meals, soup, rice, beans, whatever it was, but it was hot. They didn't have to do it. They could have said, no, make them wait till the morning for breakfast. But they took care of us. That's what the Marine Corps is all about. Taking care of each other. So again, when it comes to the food, it's important for the troops to have good food. And it's been a tradition for years. Even World War II, that before you were deployed or before you went into battle, You were fed well. It's a morale thing. So all those people that were screaming about Hegseth serving ribeyes and lobster to the military service members, as I always like to say, go screw yourself. Hey, that's my opinion. What's yours? Leave a comment, hit the like button, subscribe, please. Help this channel grow. And we'll be back maybe tomorrow with another observation and opinions by Doug. Folks, you take care of yourselves. You have a nice weekend.